competitive advantage. Next important competitive advantage for any organization is the management style. Now, so the management style is always sort of dynamic. Okay, we talked about technology, we talked about management style, then we also talked about processes or the operations. But again, all of these are not so sustainable. The other use these sources to have this sort of competitive advantage against your firm. The last important source of competitive advantage is the human resource itself, and that is considered the most sustainable competitive advantage. Now, why the human resource or the employees of the organization is the most sustainable? Because the human abilities, his experience, his education, his expertise cannot be easily imitated by the competitors. That cannot be easily copied by the competitors. So that's why all the good organizations invest so much on their human resources in order to have a source of competitive advantage. So this is one of the aspects of competitive advantage, that is sustainability. We discussed some very important sources of competitive advantage, and most importantly we discussed about the sustainability of the competitive advantage. If some organization is interested to have a competitive advantage, they should also consider that how much sustainability they would have with the help of any sort of competitive advantage. So these are the very important components of strategy. Whenever a manager, whether it's the strategic manager or it's the operations manager or it is the human resource manager, if he wants to define a sort of strategy, then he should always consider all of the components there in strategy. If these components are there in some way or the other, then it will be a good strategy. If these components are not there, then that may not be considered a good strategy. Okay, let's talk about the difference between strategy, tactics, and operations. Now, what is strategy? We just defined the strategy, that it is the long-term focus in order to achieve the purpose of the organization or the mission of the organization. So, or it may be at the functional level or at the different departmental level. So this is the strategy. We have just discussed about the strategy and the components of strategy. Now, what are the tactics? Tactics are actually the specific actions and methods to accomplish strategies. So these are actually the activities and the methods and the actions which help us to achieve the sort of strategy. Strategy has the long-term focus, and tactics always have the short-term focus. So the main purpose of the tactics is how to achieve strategy. Then comes the operations. Now, operations relates to the execution of these tactics in order to achieve a particular sort of strategy in the organizational setting. So these are related to the day-to-day operations, that what is being doing and what is being done in order to achieve the strategy. So this is the general difference between strategy, tactics, and operations. Now let's take an example so that you can differentiate between what is strategy, what are the tactics, what are the operations. Suppose you are a business student at ComSets, and of course you are, and you would like to have a career in business, can earn enough income to live comfortably. Then what is your mission? A good life. That is your goal of that for which you have taken admission in ComSets. So that is the mission. What's your goal? Successful career, good income. You want to have the good income after getting a good job in some good organization. So that is your goal. What is strategy? Obtaining a business degree from ComSets. No, that is your strategy, or that has the long-term focus. What are the tactics? Selecting a business field of your interest and high market value. So what are the tactics? You will find out that what are the most valuable subjects in the market, and again you will have the specialization in that, so that you can achieve your mission, you can achieve your goal. Now, what are the operations? First of all, you will have to register yourself with ComSets Institute of Information Technology to have a reputed degree from a reputed university. So that is one of the operational activity. then you will have to buy books, you will have to take the courses, you will have to attend the different lectures, you will have to study, of course. Then finally you will be able, inshallah, you will be able to graduate. That is the your main purpose or the mission, and after graduation hopefully you will get a very good job and you can live a very good life. So in this example it is clear that what is the mission, what is the goal, what is the strategy, what are the tactics, and what are the operations. The same is true in the organizational setting as well. There are two very important strategies which are, again, most of the strategic managers and the operation managers are concerned. That is the quality based strategies. Now quality based strategies are those strategies which focus on quality in all the phases of an organization. Now this is very important, that quality is not the responsibility of only the quality control department. Again, this is a very misperception in some of the organization, that quality is the responsibility of quality control department. It's not like that. Quality is the responsibility of all the functions, all the departments, all the individuals of the organization sometimes. So you want to have the quality at the source, at the very initial stage of that production of goods and services. So if you are able to define these quality based strategies, then these strategies will be helpful in the production of the goods and services which are the quality goods and services, and which can better satisfy your customers. So these are the quality based strategies. Then there are some, again, always the operation managers are interested to timely serve their customers. Now these sort of strategies focuses on reduction of time needed to accomplish tasks. There are many aspects of this time-based strategies. In-time delivery of the products, that is again the time-based strategy. In-time service provision to your customers, that is again the time-based strategies. And the in-time completion of the different jobs, different tasks within the organization, again that is the time-based strategy. So again, these time-based strategies and the quality-based strategies help the managers in order to achieve the competitive advantage for the organizations. Okay, let's talk about the strategic fit. What is strategic fit? And how the operation managers can have this strategic fit in order to create this synergy. We just talked about this synergy. Now we have just discussed that there is an organizational strategy, then there are some functional strategy. If the strategies are being made by some functional managers or at the department level, that may be the functional level strategies. Now whenever we define a strategy, we have that it should create a synergy. We just discussed in the components of strategy that synergy is a very important component of strategy. Now suppose there are the different departmental strategies as well. One is the marketing strategy, the other one is the operation strategy, the next one is the finance strategy. Now how we can create synergy among all these sort of strategies? Now if we define the organization strategy and it has a sort of clash with the marketing strategy, suppose, let's take the example, then that will not be considered a good strategy. So a good strategy is that strategy in which the organizational strategy do not have any sort of clash or conflict with the departmental strategies. If you are able to achieve this sort of strategy, then that will be considered to having the vertical fit in the organizations. So when we talk about the strategic fit, there are the two aspects of strategic fit. One is the vertical fit, the other one is the horizontal fit. Now if the organizational strategy aligns with the departmental strategies or the functional strategies, it is said to have the vertical fit. And if the different strategies are able to align with each other, then it will set to have horizontal strategy. When we discuss about the operations, we define that there is a sort of linkage between the operations and the marketing and the finance, and we also discuss some very important examples. So if we are able to create this sort of linkage between these sort of departmental strategies, again there will be a sort of synergy. They can give the better output than working individually and in isolation with each other. So this is the horizontal strategy. So whenever we are interested to define some strategy, we should take into consider that how we can create or how we can have the vertical fit in the strategy and how we can have the horizontal fit in the strategy. So this is about the strategic fit in order to have synergy. Okay, let's talk about the formulation of strategy. Whenever we are interested to formulate the strategy or we are interested to have some sort of strategic management, then the environmental scanning is a very important step, and of course that is the sometimes the foremost and first important step which should be taken by the managers, whether the operation managers or the strategic managers. Now there are the two types of environments. One is the external environment, the other one is the internal environment. Now what is the external environment? It includes the forces which exist outside the organization or which are not controllable by the organization, like your cultural environment, your overall technical environment, economical environment, then your regulatory environment. So all these are related to the external environment of the organization. Then there's some internal environment. Now what is the internal environment? It includes the forces which exist within the organization, and the organization can have a sort of control over their internal environment or the internal sources. Now internal environment includes the different organizational policies, different organizational procedures, the organizational culture, that is also the part of the internal environment. Then of course your human resource, that your employees and your different departments, your MIS system, that is also the part of the internal environment. So we were talking about the strategy formulation. Environmental scanning and environmental examination is a very important part of formulation of the strategy, and we will not be able to define a good strategy unless we properly scan our environment. And what is the basic purpose of scanning the environment? Because we want to identify the different opportunities and the different threats for our organization. Now what are the opportunities and what are the threats? Now opportunities and the threats are related to the external environment, and strengths and weaknesses are related to the internal environment of the organization. So in the different other subjects and the management subjects, you must have learned about this organizational environment. I will not discuss it in detail, but I will discuss a very important aspect of this environmental scanning with respect to that operations management strategy. You know, every organization have limited resources, and they should always effectively utilize the resources. So when we scan the environment, then we find that there are many opportunities in the market, and you want to avail these opportunities, but you don't have enough resources. So there are not enough resources to avail all the opportunities from the environment. So what managers do, they identify that what are the most important opportunities which have the direct impact on the long-term viability of the organization, and they utilize those resources in the attainment of those important opportunities. So that is the better, utilization of the resources. Again, when they are going to scan the environment and they are finding that there are so many threats in the environment, but of course the strength of the threat varies for the organizations, and if they are able to find out that what are the most important threats which have the most negative effect on the organization, they should have allocate the resources in order to combat, in order to deal with those sort of threats. But if there are sort of threats which have little probability to be occurred in the future, or which may not have the very serious impact on the organization, then the organization should not use their resources, that is the most important resources, over those sort of threats. So whenever we talk about the environmental scanning, and whenever we talk about the different opportunities, threats, strengths and weaknesses, we will have to find out and we will have to define a way that how we can efficiently and effectively utilize our resources in order to attain these opportunities and in order to avail or to avoid the different sort of threats. So this is very important aspect of strategy formulation. And of course all this environmental scanning is a very important source of creating the competitive advantage for the organization. So that is the overall linkage between the mission and the strategy and the environmental scanning, and how all these things help us to define a strategy and to have the sort of competitive advantage for our organization. Now let's talk about the strategic OM decisions. We've already discussed these decisions in some way or the other. For example, one of the manager is the design of the goods and services, that how they are being able to design the goods and services for their customers so that they can better satisfy the customer needs. So again, this is a very important and strategic decision. And when we talk about the competitiveness, then we also talked about the responsiveness or flexibility. If the organization do not have the flexible environment and flexible operations, and they are not being able to design the goods and services according to the customer requirements, then of course they will not be able to get the competitive advantage for their organization. So it is very important for the organization that it should define a sort of strategy so that they will be able to design the goods and services according to the customer changing requirements. The second important strategic decision is the quality. Again, all the managers, all the organizations are always interested to maintain and to sustain the quality level for their products and services in order to better satisfy their customer needs. So again, this is the strategic decision about quality. Then the processes and the capacity design. We just talked about that process or the operations within the organization can play a very important role in creating the competitive advantage. So how we can design most important operations and how we can better utilize the capacity within the organization, whether it is the human resource capacity or it is the machine capacity, in order to have the long-term impact over the organization viability. Then again, location selection is again a strategic OM decision, that where to locate the facility, where to have the location of your production unit, so that you may have the competitive advantage. Then what is the most suitable output for your organization? That may be the process-oriented layout, or that may be the service-oriented layout. How we can utilize our human resources in order to have the competitive advantage over the competitors, and how the job should be designed and the work environment should be there in order to have a sort of competitive advantage. Now again, supply chain management, that is includes the management activities right from the acquiring of the raw material up to the manufacturing or the production of the final goods and services. Now how we can manage all these activities? This will be only be possible if you are able. So you'll have to produce some unique products, and you'll have to include some unique characteristics and features in your product, so that your product may be different with respect to the competitors, and that will better satisfy the needs of your customers and the needs of the organization as well. Then the cost leadership. If you are able to have a sort of advantage to give the lower price products to your customers, then again that can be a sort of competitive advantage, and that is a very important source of competitive advantage for the most of the organizations. But again, cheaper product doesn't always mean the lower quality. We should have a sort of trade-off between the quality as well as the price. Then the third important point is the response. Response have three important aspects. One is the flexibility. Now with respect to the operations management, if your operations are flexible with respect to the design of the goods and services as per requirements of your customers, then again that will be a competitive advantage. If your operations are not so flexible and cannot meet the changing needs of the environment as well as of your customers, then again that may not have sort of edge over the competitors. Then reliability is most important. That is the consistency. Reliability is related to consistency. If you are able to provide consistent and good products and services to our customers, again that will be a sort of competitive advantage. Rapid response. If our operations are effectively and efficiently designed in the way that we can give the quick response to our customers for the product delivery or to give the after-sale service, so again this will be a very important source of competitive advantage for the organizations. So these are the three very important points and very important approaches through which all the organizations, good organizations, are interested to have a sort of competitive advantage, and this is the competitive advantage through the different operations. Now let's talk about the operation management's contribution to strategy. Now we just about the different operations decisions, that is the quality decisions, product decisions, that is the design of products and services, process decisions. Then we talked about the location decisions, layout decisions, human resource decisions, supply chain management decisions, then inventory decisions, scheduling and maintenance decisions. All these are sort of operational decisions in which most of the operation managers are interested. So what are the different strategies in order to take these strategic operational decisions? We can use the flexibility. We just talked about the flexibility, that is the flexibility of the operational activities of the organization. Then we talked about the lower cost. We talked about the timely delivery of the products and services. We also talked about the quality. So these are the different specific strategies which can be used to take these sort of strategic operational decisions. Now suppose, let's take the example of Sony. If Sony is able to give the constant innovation to their products in order to have the different products and the new products for their customers, then that will be had a sort of competitive advantage. That is the differentiation competitive advantage. We just discussed that there are three important sources of competitive advantage, or we can have the advantage in the three important forms. That is the differentiation, that is the response, quick response, that is the cost leadership. So by using these sort of specific strategies, in order to take the decisions about these specific strategic options, we can have these sort of competitive advantage for our organizations. So you see how the different managers can use the different strategic options. By using the different tactics, by using the different strategies, they can have the good competitive advantage over their competitors, and of course the organization will cash this sort of competitive advantage. Now let's discuss about the preconditions to implement a strategy. The first condition is competitors and the new entrants. You must analyze that what are the different competitors in your industry and how they are being serving their customers. So unless you are going to analyze and examine your competitors, and you must know that what new competitors are being entering in your industry, you cannot define a good strategy for your own organization. So it is always good to have the competitive analysis, and sometimes we say it as the task environment, that is the competitive environment analysis. We just talked about the external environment, internal environment. Now competitive environment, no doubt that is a part of the external environment, but sometimes in some books, due to its importance, we also consider this competitive environment or the task environment as this third important environment for any organization and for any operation manager, strategic manager, for the analysis purpose. So unless we are able to examine our competitors, their strategies, we cannot define the source of good competitive advantage for our own organization. Then again, the environmental scanning is so important. We have already discussed that how we can scan the environment to identify the different opportunities and threats, and after identifying these opportunities and threats and the weakness and the strengths, the organization may be able to define a strategy which have a sort of competitive advantage for the organization. So without scanning our environment, without analyzing our competitive strategies, we will not be able to define a sort of strategy which may have edge over the competitors. Now again, the notion of product life cycle is so important, because the product life cycle is being condensed with the passage of time because of the changing requirements of customers. So you have to find out that what is the length of your product life cycle, and accordingly you can define your relevant strategy. Then what are the available resources? Without resources you cannot have a sort of strategy. So you should define your resources, that what resources you have and how you can better and effectively utilize your resources by using the distinctive competencies. Distinctive competencies are the special expertise an organization have with respect to the competitors. For example, if the organization has a special automatic machinery, suppose, which is not available to the competitors, then that will be a sort of distinctive competency for the organization. Or if your organization has some human resource expertise, then that may also be a sort of distinctive competency for the organization. Then last, most important thing, that is the integration of operations management strategy with the company strategy and the other functions. We just talked about the horizontal fit and vertical fit. Whenever we are interested to define the strategy or the operations management strategy, we should look at how it can create the synergy. It should have the vertical fit, it should align with the organizational overall strategy, and it should also have the horizontal fit. That is, it should also align with the different horizontal functions. That is the marketing function, that is the finance function, that may be the quality control function. So whenever you are going to define some operations management strategy, it is very important that you should have the vertical fit and you should have the horizontal fit, so that synergy can be created and the overall output can be seen and can be used by the organization in order to have a long-term impact, for the organization. Then let's talk about the impetus for OM strategy change. The first point is the changes in the organization. In order to handle with the different changes which are being occurring in the organization, you'll have to define a good strategy. You'll have to define a good operational management strategy. Then stages in the product life cycle, you'll have to examine that at what stage your product is lying. Of course, at the introduction stage, you will have the different strategy, and if your organization is at the maturity stage, you should define a different strategy. Then what are the changes in the environment? The organization should be vigilant that what changes are being occurring in the environment. Now, when we talk about the organizational environmental changes, then there is another very important aspect. There is a sort of environment which changes very rapidly, like technical environment, technological environment, telecommunication environment. Now, this is a sort of environment which changes very quickly. So, how much quickly the environmental changes, the most vigilant should be the operations manager and the strategic manager. And there are some environments which takes decades to change, like cultural environment. It requires a lot of it requires a decade to change the cultural environment. So the organization and the managers should have to be vigilant that what changes are being occurring in the environment, and accordingly they should define their relevant strategy. Okay, after we are able to formulate a strategy, the next step is the strategy development and implementation. Of course, environmental scanning will help us to define the strategy. Then after the SWOT analysis, that is the strengths, weakness, opportunities and threats, we will be able to define our distinctive competencies, that what are the special attributes or the abilities within the organization which can create a sort of competitive advantage for the organization, and which can give the organizations a sort of edge over their competitors. So all the organizations are always seeking to catch their competencies, to catch their core competencies. Then there are some critical success factors. The organization should also identify their critical success factors, that what are the success factors in the environment or in the market which can helpful for the organization in order to achieve their objectives. Now let's talk about McDonald's or some restaurant, in which the layout strategy or layout of the firm is so important, and that may be a sort of critical success factor. And how quickly they are serving their customers and their human expertise can be a sort of competencies or the distinctive competencies. So this is how we can differentiate between the distinctive competency and the critical success factors. Then all the organizations are always interested to build and staff the organization in order to fill the different positions within the organization, so that again the objectives of the organization can be achieved. Then finally, and most importantly, the deployment of organizational resources. We just discussed this deployment of resources in the strategy elements. That is a very important element, that how the operational managers or the strategic managers are going to deploy, are going to allocate the organizational resources. So there should be a sort of integration, there should be a sort of linkage, there should be a sort of alignment when you are going to allocate the different resources to the different organizations. If you are able to allocate these resources in order to achieve that sort of integration or the linkage or the alignment, then again you can have this sort of synergy, and that can lift out the performance of the organization and ultimately the profitability of the organization. Okay, let's talk about operations strategy. We have defined the strategy. We discussed about the different components of strategy. Then we discussed about the strategy, that how the strategy can be helpful in creating a sort of competitive advantage for the organization. Then we talk about the environmental scanning, that what are the different forces in the environment which are important for the strategic managers, and how they can identify the different opportunities and the threats out of that environment. Finally, how we can have the operations strategy. Now again, operations strategy is a sort of functional strategy, and the purpose of defining that operations strategy is the linkage and the alignment. Again, when we discussed about the operations, we talked about the linkage between the operations, between the marketing department, between the finance department, and between the other entities of the organization. So No doubt, operational strategy is a functional strategy, but through this functional strategy, we should have a sort of linkage, we should have a sort of alignment to the other departments and the other functions of the organization, so that we can have a sort of synergy or have a sort of long-term impact. So again, that is the two important things about the operations strategy, is to have the horizontal fit as well as the vertical fit. The operation strategy should be such strategy that it should also align to the overall organizational goals or the overall organization strategy. It should also align to the mission and vision of the organization. If we are able to define such sort of operation strategy, then of course that operation strategy will help us to have a sort of synergy for our organization, and that will increase the working environment in the organization as well. Okay class, today we discussed some very important concepts, some very important approaches related to the strategy, related to the competitiveness, and how important is the competitiveness and how important is the strategy. We also talked about both of these aspects of competitiveness and strategy. Then how we can define a good strategy, what are the important elements of strategy, and how the operations management should have a sort of linkage, a sort of alignment, a sort of collaboration and collaborative and cooperative environment, so that there can be a sort of synergy being created within the organization in order to create the synergy. Another very important aspect of that operation strategy and the competitiveness and strategy is that we should always define our strategy in the way that it can be helpful for us to achieve the sort of competitive advantage. Now this is the most important thing. Nowadays, if I sum up the whole of this discussion, the most important thing for the organization is not that how hard you are working, but this is how smart you are working and how different you are working. So how differently you are serving your customers, how differently you are changing your products and services in order to meet the changing needs of your customers. That is most important for the organizations. And we also discussed about the quality, that quality is the most important aspect which can create a sort of competitive advantage for the organization. But quality is sometimes a sort of intangible thing. And in the lecture, incoming lecture, we will discuss about the quality, that what is the importance of quality and how we can better manage the quality. In the forthcoming lecture, that is about managing quality, there will be three lectures about this particular topic. In the first lecture, that will, of course, the fourth lecture, we'll discuss about the quality aspects, its features, and the other dimensions of quality. Then in the next lecture, we will discuss about the different tools, that how we can manage the quality. Then in the last lecture, we will discuss about some practical problems and the real life problems, that how we can apply the different quality related tools in order to solve the problems and in order to take the better decisions within the organization. So class, this is all about our today's lecture. Good luck and stay blessed. Khuda Hafiz. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are all doing well there.